All right, Shalom. We'll start off this lesson giving all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Kakadash, the blindest, the apostles, and the elders and bishops of Great Millstone only. Peace and blessings and salutations unto the elect, only unto you I say Shalom. And as you see the title, The Violent Man. Now, when we talk about the violent man, okay, for those that are not hip to the scriptures or reality, that's talking about Esau, Edom, the so-called white man. Now, Esau, all right, is the biblical identification, okay, of so-called white man. All right, and as you can see, he is the violent man that the scriptures talk about. Now, his atrocities are spread on the four corners of the earth, and that it cannot be mistaken, man. Okay, or who he is, based upon his actions and based upon the descriptions in the Bible that we are, we have been open to. Obadiah chapter 1, verse 10, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Okay, that's right. And this is a part of the scriptures that, Vocab Malone and friends, they can't explain. A lot of you Christians, that you've never went into Obadiah. When we read the scriptures, a lot of Christians are lost, man. They don't know what's going on. All right? They can't explain prophecy. They can't go into anything deep. Christians are just spiritual retards, man. Okay, excuse my language, but that's exactly what they are. All right? They have no spiritual compass about them at all, man. All right? They ain't gonna tell you about Esau and his violence. They ain't gonna tell you or even consider the atrocities that has happened to the Israelites and who they are. They're not specific on seed lines. All right. They don't talk about the house of David. Okay. And first and foremost, they know that oppression exists. They know that slavery exists. They know that there's a problem in the earth, but they don't want to point him out for who he is. And that's the difference between, other camps, other people teaching the Bible is over here at Great Millstone. We point it out, man. Obadiah 1 and 10, for thy violence. Okay, so first and foremost, man, whose violence? Let's talk about that, because there's violence always in the earth, right? But there's different levels to it. And no one has brought more violence to the earth than Esau. Okay? And that's why you see all of these ICE agents, getting $50,000 bonuses to sign up. But guess what, man? It's the shame. All right? This is why he's moving the way he's moving. He's being exposed for who he is. If you see, to be an Edomite in 2025, man, that hits different, because the Lord knows, man, the faster things start to speed up, we're talking about Jacob's trouble, the MOTB, the faster these things start to speed up, the faster we're starting to realize that this man is running out of time and he is going to get extremely desperate. And that's what you're seeing now in the days that we're in. Okay? Hiroshima, Nagasaki. He has all of the tools of death. He puts his names on it. All right? And the Lord called him his sword, man. And that's what he does. He wages wars in the earth. And, everything is utilized for his advantage. The scriptures call him a violent man, a bloody man, a cruel man. And you see, his violence has always been against you Jakes. All right. When we say you Jakes, we're talking about you Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanic, and you Native Americans. You attach yourself to all these proverbs and Bible words, not knowing who you are as far as heritage goes. That's why you do these things, man. Obadiah 1 and 10. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. And a lot of you Hispanics, you think that you are better. You think that because your complexion is likened unto this man, that he's going to have mercy on you? No. As soon as he finds out your name is Garcia, Hernandez, Lopez, okay, he's going to know, man, you're part of the tribes. He's going to know that you should be privy to the violence that you were exposed to, that you should be privy to the hate that he has had for you since the beginning of time, man. This man has always hated us, and this is nothing new, okay?
Of course, a hanging was a big community event. The little boys would climb into the adjacent trees to get a good view. People would bring picnic baskets. They would make a day out of it. It was like a big jovial affair. Of course, this is for the white people. The black people and Mexicans weren't going to come to this because they were the object of it was to instill terror in their lives. This is this is horrible. Yeah, it is horrible. It is what it is. It is what it is.
The events that took place here in Goliad weren't unique. Over the next 70 years, there were 871 documented lynchings of Mexican Americans in 13 Western states.
Did you hear that? Okay. So you got to understand, man. You Northern Kingdoms was terrorized just as much. They just don't emphasize it in the history books. But you were terrorized just as much as we were, man. 8 over how many? Come on, man. It's not difficult to know that this man hates you. His reputation alone in the earth has exposed how violent he can be, how violent he wants to be. You see, it's peace. See, violence is peaceful to the so-called white man. And he's showing you with his ICE agents, all right, with his laws, the way he snatches you out of his cars. The fact that when you see blue and red lights, you know, man, whether you got anything in the car or not. Just the fact that you're the complexion that you are, man. Okay, your life is at risk.
Over the next 70 years, there were 871 documented lynchings of Mexican Americans in 13 Western states. And yet the violence found in the rest of the Southwest didn't compare to the horror of South Texas. In a single decade, from 1910 to 1920, historians estimate as many as 5,000 Mexican Americans were murdered in a brutal wave of terror and mass executions. In proportion to their numbers, Mexicans were lynched in the West as often as blacks were lynched in the South.
And what does the scripture says? That Judah and Israel were oppressed together. If we were oppressed together, then we were hung together. Okay? Everybody understands how violent this man can be, except for our people. The other nations understand. That's why they sit at his tables, right? And they listen to his bullshit. They take his money, his currency, his technology. They make you know, they do business with this man. Why? Because they know what kind of business he's in. He's in the business of violence, man. It hasn't changed. It's just evolved. You see? He's playing both sides of the wars. He's funding both sides of the wars. Who else better to do it besides Esau? And here it is. We have the history books of how violent he was as far back in the ancient days. Now nobody wants to understand it now. Nobody wants to explain where, okay, and how slavery came about. But the scriptures talk about it in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and 68, that we were put on slave ships, man. Yeah. Okay, you Northern Kingdom, you were already over here. Okay, but ultimately you're starting to realize how violent this man can be. And now you're gonna be exposed to the max, okay, in the times to come, because Jacob's trouble is about, we're already here, man. Okay, I mean, how much more? You see the famine, you see the plagues, the missiles are constantly being brought out. Okay, the prophets are sounding the alarm. Okay, on who Esau Edom really is, and everybody's playing with the so-called white man. Okay, like a gazelle at the watering hole. Because I tell you what, this society has been designed to entrap our people, to snare our people. Okay, as a whole, they don't put whole foods, okay, easily accessible to you. They don't do, okay, fundraisers and positive events around Jake. They maneuver around you like you're beast and animals, man. And they treat these centurions and these police officers like, they treat them like they're zookeepers, man. Okay, because that's how Esau looks at us as a people. He looks at us like we're exposable, like we're beasts, like we're nothing, like we're less than. And then you gotta dress your kids up and send them to school so this man can educate them, okay, on how less than they really are. Because if you think your teachers are interested in the education of your kids, man, you're wrong. Okay, they're not. They're only going to educate them about their nations conquering us, man. It's all throughout the history books on how violent this man is as a whole. Okay. Yeah, man.
This is Pod 5.
Excuse me for the
first
ad.
fully
What?
immersive sleep system. Intelligent.
You know, Esau got a lot to pay for, and that's what he don't want to do. He don't want to pay for none of his crimes. Okay, his crimes on the four corners of the earth.
Aluale Cosasola, or Cujo Lewis, was abducted by illegal slavers in 1860 and enslaved in Alabama, where he later began a self-contained African community once he was freed. Over the course of nearly 400 years, more than 12 million Africans were abducted by slavers and shipped to Europe and North America. The process, known as the transatlantic slave trade, was legally outlawed in the United States in 1807. But in 1860, one slaver violated that law and shipped about 160 West African captives to Mobile, Alabama.
You see, they make their own laws and they break them. Okay, and the scriptures talk about that. You know how their tongue walks through the earth. If you got a law that tells you that you can't do something, well, you pay enough money, you can break that law. Okay, the so-called white man has only made laws and drew the lines to keep you Jakes in line, man. Okay, because paying a ticket ain't nothing to an Edomite that has an inheritance. That's nothing. That's stream of views and subscriptions, man. For you Jakes, man, that's a water bill, that's a light bill, that's car insurance. This man has done these things intentionally to keep us back as a people. Is it? Look at us, man. Look at the violence. Who's gonna pay for these things? If it had not been the Lord, man, 2/3 of our people ain't standing up for these atrocities, man. Packed on slave ships.
Among them was Casasulo Cujo Lewis, who is now known as one of the last survivors of the transatlantic slave trade. In 1927, Lewis was famously interviewed and filmed by author Zora Neale Hurston about his traumatizing experience as a slave and his attempt to recreate his West African homeland in Mobile, Alabama.
You gotta understand too, man. We're just talking about one life. You gotta understand the darkness, all right, that has to be over Jake when You gotta, running in shackles, barefooted in the swamp with snakes and spiders and, gators and mosquitoes, hiding from dogs barking, yokes of iron around your neck, not knowing where your wife or your kids are. You really got to soak in the atrocities of this man. All right, because they runs deep. It's deeper than what people know. It's deeper what people want to talk about. All right.
One, the story of Jameer Leonard, who was having an acute mental health issue, was taken to the hospital where the doctors, mental health professionals, and parents requested temporary restraining order for him, and it was denied. After he was denied the temporary restraining order, the sheriff took him to a friend's house, and he was never seen again alive. He was found about 6 days later in the Marion River, deceased, and at that point, all of his internal organs were missing. So we're asking at this point for information, for awareness to the situation.
Yeah, man. Jake organs got missing, man. Okay. This was a long time ago.
Took him to a friend's
but
house.
You got to remember, look, the sheriff took him to a friend's house. And this is a mentally impaired man that got denied services. Jamie Leona, right? After a man experienced health crisis, is found dead, missing organs, including his penis. Who else is doing stuff like that? We have the atrocities, man, of Esau. This was 2 years ago, by the way. It wasn't a long time ago. And see, you're going to be introduced to how violent this man can really be. Okay? The scripture says, arise and disappoint him, cast him down. All right? Deliver me from the man who is thy sword. Okay? Who have their portion in this life. They live in the best areas of the world, man. That's the blessing that they got from the beginning, that they have the fatness of the earth and they would live by the sword. But the Lord didn't tell them that they would die by the sword. Okay? And that's what's coming to Esau, man. Why? Because he's a violent man. All right? And the Lord is going to get violent with his ass. All right? Lord willing, this was edifying. Pray this lesson was edifying. Spirit and power of Yahweh Shemi Yahushai. With that, I'm giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh. By Shemi Yahushai. The blindest, the apostles, elders, bishops, a great millstone. Peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect. Only unto you I say, Shalom. Wake up, Jacob. Wake up and know who the violent man is. Or you're going to find out up close and personal. Shalom.